Welcome back to the Esports Mastery Series. We're here at the Bond University Esports Hub. My name is Brendan from the Chiefs Esports Club.
My name is Lisa from Bond University. Today we are thrilled to introduce you to Chris Haddock. Chris is an endorsed sports and exercise psychologist with a lifelong passion for sports and performance. He's worked with elite athletes, teams and organisations, and he's here to share his expertise with us today. Chris, thanks for joining us.
Oh, thank you. Very kind introduction. Appreciate it.
So I guess with our first question, what are the principles of sports psychology that can be transferred to the gaming world?
Yeah, look, I think there's obviously various sport and exercise psychology principles that can be transferred. Number one would be that adding in that psychological flexibility, which is really all around differential thinking and movement through space and being present in the moment and being able to execute your skills under pressure with specific focus and concentration.
Chris, can you please discuss the importance of mental skills in gaming and how they can be strengthened and developed over time by pros?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think mental skills are really important for all athletes, especially in gaming. Obviously, gaming requires a lot of focus and attention for long periods of time. So naturally our brain wavers and goes off task or off topic throughout that time, which is really normal. So normalising that and having the skills and strategies to come back to focusing and being present can be really important. So practicing mental skills regularly is I guess the number one priority from my perspective. I think it's an area where a lot of athletes will fall down and they will try to just implement some mental skills and mental strategies in a moment without practicing and expect it to work. Whereas if we create a plan, we have specific strategies, I guess just like a training plan, like you would for gaming. If you add mental skills into that training plan and you're practicing those regularly, preferably a daily basis is ideal, but as long as you're doing it regularly throughout a week or a training block, then you will strengthen that mental skill and become more proficient and automatic in executing that. So when you need it in a moment of pressure or in a game-based situation or a tournament-based situation, you're able to execute that skill under pressure and then consistent gameplay continues. So I think the importance there is really training the mind same as you would the body or the skill of the game.
Yeah, so when you talk about mental skills, are we talking about mindfulness and meditation and breathing and stuff like that?
Yeah, certainly. I think mindfulness meditation is one aspect of mental skills, and I think there's various aspects of mental skills. Mindful meditation is probably your easiest one to practice daily, and I think your breath and the power of breath work is probably our most underutilized skill that everyone has access to.
Yeah.
I think the way we can use our breath to calm the brain and refocus is really important, and it's the number one strategy I always promote is just remember to breathe. If you've ever tried to lift something without breathing or execute a skill without breathing, it's very, very difficult. So if you practice your breathing and make it purposeful, that's fantastic. But there's also other mental skills such as imagery. There's developing cues, and which might be words or phrases or cue actions to enable yourself to perform really well. There's also, you may encourage goal setting, especially amongst the younger community, in order to develop and enhance their skill base, both from a mental space and a gaming space or an esports space.
Awesome.
So I think there's definitely various mental skills out there that you can utilise, but certainly those are my sort of top few that I would work in regularly, and especially would be transferable into that esports world.
Yeah, I like what you said, that it is a daily practice. I guess switching gears and getting into the high competitive stakes environment, how can gamers actually manage stress and anxiety in those situations?
Yeah, again, great question. I think part of it is, again, that daily practice and what you're engaging in, but it's also, part of it would be those mental skills and implementing those daily, but the other part is having really good strategies for self-care outside of the esports and gaming world. Typically it is one aspect of your life, and it's very easy to fall into that space where we completely identify as this one person. My whole life revolves around this, and that's typically where we would see higher chances and higher rates of burnout and fatigue. So having some strategies outside of the esports and gaming world can be really important, and whether that might be listening to music on the way home, again, maybe doing some mindful meditation, work, making sure you're sleeping well, eating well, and hopefully have some good social and or family connections as well. I tend to promote with a lot of athletes that I work with, and even a few in the esports world, that we live on the Gold Coast, so it's a great place. So going to the beach,
Yeah.
or if you're up in Brisbane and you don't like travelling down the highway, go to somewhere like the riverbank and enjoy. I think the tranquility of water helps a lot of people, and it again calms the mind and can help be a bit of a reset cue and a relaxation cue for people. So that will definitely assist in managing some of that stress. A side note to that would be just having a really good perspective on things. The way you view something can really impact the way it will have an effect on your mental health. So if you view it as that's a situational issue and that's a problem, I can solve it, or I can pull some resources to help me to solve that, then I'm going to be much more happier with myself and how I go about it than if I view this as the most catastrophic thing that's ever happened to me. I don't know how I'm going to manage it. That's when my stress levels are going to go up, and I'm going to have that spill over into other areas of my life.
So off the back of that previous question, how can gamers really work on their focus so they can stay focused in game over long periods of time?
Yeah, excellent question. I think a big part of that, again, is that daily practice, but
Yeah.
it's also having a heightened sense of awareness of what your own thoughts, feelings, and actions are in specific situations. So I think that's the number one concept of improving focus, is being aware.
Yeah.
If you're not aware how you act or react in certain situations, it can be very difficult to improve your ability to focus and concentrate or attend to what you would like to attend to in the moment. So it might be a simple reflective process post a training block, or gaming, or even your day-to-day activities. Just how did I react? What did I think in that space? How did I feel? And what did I do? So how did I act?
Yep.
And then how would I like to act in that space? So you're going through a bit of a reflective process and taking some notes down. You're building your own awareness processes of self. And then from there, we can start to work on some more specific strategies where you might develop cue words or cue actions in that space. And it might be a short breath, or it might be a tap, sometimes it can be dependent on what game you're playing in this space, as to how much time you can do or what action you can take. If the hands are busy, then it might be developing something with the feet, just to remind myself, bang. Even an eye-based cue. I know of some athletes that have had cues where they've looked up into the stadium where a specific family member may have sat, and that just reminds them to come back and be present. So it's really heightening your awareness and practicing the development of implementing those cues or tasks or strategies in the moment to have them be impactful. And as I mentioned before, the mind naturally wanders off. So if you are finding yourself getting really easily distracted, maybe by the person next to you, or someone's talking a lot on the headphones, and that's not something you typically would like, it's practicing how do I manage that, because we can only control certain things. And sometimes that's probably one of the biggest strategies that I do use, is working on what you can control and how can you focus on that. So shifting your attention from that uncontrollable space over to the controllable space, and developing cues to be able to do that.
Awesome, great answer.
Excellent. I guess, Chris, working with elite athletes, you come across the role of motivation.
Yeah.
How do you actually define that, and how can gamers stay motivated, especially during challenging times?
Yeah, excellent. Motivation is such an interesting topic, and I think different things will motivate different people. Some people are motivated by trying to achieve a ranking space, potentially. Some are motivated by medals or points or winning, whereas other people are just motivated to create a pathway to say, I did it, I proved that it could be done for my type of person. So there's the intrinsic, internal, or extrinsic and external motivators for people. So being able to identify where you sit in terms of motivation can be really important. And then I always say consistency breeds motivation, which then allows confidence to take over as well. So it's normal to be unmotivated at times. I'm not too sure if there's athletes that want to get up at 3 a.m. every single day to train, especially during winter where it's cold and might be wet and they've got to train outside. Or they're just doing the same thing on their own in a swimming pool. It can be very monotonous. So motivation is normal to go on a bit of a roller coaster. It goes in ebbs and flows. But if you can maintain consistency, that always allows for motivation to be relatively consistent as well.
Yeah.
And it will always bring back that motivation. Now, if you find an athlete is struggling with motivation at times, it can be good to do some goal setting, just to rejig. What are we here for? Define our purpose and set some goals to work towards, which will allow that athlete to become more motivated to get to where they want to be.
So with a setback within, say, a result of a competition,
Yeah.
would you go through that goal setting process, or what would be your next strategy
Yeah,
associated with motivation?
Yeah, I think sometimes it depends on what the expectation for that person, whether it was from self or from others, where they wanted to place. Setbacks are normal. We know the best in the world have events where they don't place or end up where they would like to be. I think Usain Bolt's a great example of that. His very last race, he tore a hamstring and didn't finish. Or I think he crossed the line, but he didn't finish where he wanted to finish. And an ideal world says he wins that race and he goes out on cloud 9, but sometimes it's not to be. And sometimes it's about reflecting on what happened in that, how would I like to act, what could I do differently next time? And again, setting a game plan as to what you can do to approach the next event and how you're going to go about it, because naturally we can't control everything, and sometimes we're pipped by the better player, and there's maybe a generational athlete coming through that is just really good at the same game that you're in or in the same space. So we can't control that, so it's about focusing on what I can do and how I can go about that in order to achieve what I would like to achieve.
So on the topic of setbacks, can you
Yep.
explain the concept of mental toughness and how that can be cultivated in the competitive gaming space?
Yeah, of course. I think mental toughness varies for a lot of different people. To me, it's essentially being able to manage adversity and still compete at a really high level. It's having the resilience, the grit, the determination to achieve what you would like to achieve in the face of potentially injury or being told you can't, or having that generational athlete who's really, really good at still going out there and competing at your 110% each and every time, regardless of what else is around you.
Yeah.
So transferring that into the esports world or the gaming world, it may be all around where am I at, and having some honest conversations with yourself, and then saying, how do I get to the next step or the next level, or how do I maintain the level I'm at? Because
Yeah.
for some people, they climb the ladder really quickly and then find themselves feeling like the imposter syndrome. And that's
Yeah.
where sometimes the mental toughness can really kick in. It's like, do you fall victim to imposter syndrome and dwindle back down the ladder, or do you dig your heels in and say, I belong here, this is
Yeah.
what I'm all about, I'm going to be okay, and I'm going to train and work really hard on my skill set to stay at this level, and hopefully I'm going to keep climbing that ladder.
Yeah, I guess that self-talk is so important in those environments.
Yeah.
I guess switching gears now to the team culture, how would you build a positive, supportive team culture?
Yeah, excellent question. I think this is one of my favourite parts of sport and exercise psychology is building good team culture, and it's about defining relationships and identifying how each and every person within that team operates, but then getting everyone on the same page. So whether it be through a shared mission, values, value style statement or mission statement, and workshopping that as a group can be really powerful. And sometimes groups like to do that in a camp-based setting, where almost like a pre-season style, where you get in and do that early. This is what we're all about. It's how we're going to go about it together as a team. We do some team building sort of techniques and strategies together as well, and some of that comes across as games. But when you debrief it, it's all about communication, working together. How do you operate? How do I operate? And then if we clash at times, how do we resolve that effectively to be able to move forward and still work together and keep the team moving in the same direction? So I think it really is identifying values, standards, behaviours, and having the same shared purpose.
So Chris, you spoke about mental skills a bit earlier.
Yeah.
How can gamers really utilise visualisation and this sort of mental fortitude that you spoke about to prepare themselves for, upcoming really high stakes games or tournaments?
Excellent question. I think, again, practice is really important, and I think practicing visualization early is really, really important, and bringing in the 5 senses as well. So if you can practice your visualization with your 5 senses, and there's some imagery scripts and so on that I usually promote that people practice with to start to get used to that skill and develop that skill really well. That brings in those 5 senses, and once you're there, once you've practiced it, once you start feeling those 5 senses when you're doing the visualization scripts, it's about starting to visualize yourself in small snippets in those high stakes events. Okay, what situation am I in? How am I going to act, react, or how do I want to be proactive in that space, and visualizing that occurring. And when you're visualizing yourself do that, it's visualizing yourself executing the way you want to execute.
Yeah.
So if you make a mistake or you don't execute the way you would like to in that space, stop and start again. And each time you visualize, it's building on that practice, and you might build up where you can visualize 60 seconds to 2 minutes to 5 minutes at a time, which becomes really, really powerful. And I think it's a skill, again, which has been proven to be highly effective in all sports and not just gaming. But I think in the gaming world, it will allow people to, especially the younger athlete, to prepare themselves for the pressure of that high stakes event and potentially that high stakes moment where they're able to execute the way they want to execute, because mentally they've been there 100 times before.
Yeah.
So they might have been planning for this moment for 6 weeks prior to an event, and all of a sudden they get to that space.
Yeah.
They're in the same moment they've been visualizing, and bang, they execute, and they walk away going, wow, that was amazing. And it's just that power of being able to practice that skill over and over again before you actually do it. So if you do need to execute in that space, you're able to execute.
Yeah, what a powerful technique.
Yeah, absolutely. I think leading up to competitions is one thing, but with a lot of gamers, how can they actually balance training with rest and recovery?
Yeah, I think that's the trick for all elite athletes, isn't it? It's because you can pour so much of yourself into that space. And I think I mentioned before, it's doing the little things right outside of the training environment or the gaming environment. And it's ensuring, maybe at times, setting yourself a time limit for training blocks. So if you're aware you're coming up to an event, or there's a heavy load of training going on where maybe it's going to be a lot more physically and or mentally taxing, then making sure your strategies outside of that space, and even in your breaks in training, are really good. You might do 5 deep breaths in between, or take stock, listen to music for 5 minutes. While you're eating, it might be, okay, I'm aware that I'm really have just had a heavy load in that space, in that session. I'm just going to go eat on my own for 5 minutes, or I'm going to take my lunch outside and go for a walk while I eat my lunch, if you can do that. So it's utilising the time and space that you do have really, really well. Not just once you're finished, slump down in the chair and go, I'm pretty tired now, I'm going to just sit here for a little while.
Yeah.
For some people that might work, but I usually promote getting up and getting active, because the research does show that physical activity enhances cognitive output. And I believe in the gaming world, cognitive output's really, really important.
Yeah.
So if you can be a little bit physically active, then that's going to enhance your ability to concentrate in the gaming space as well. So the balance is quite tricky. But again, outside of the training space, if you can, sleep, eat well, drink water, do all those things you're kind of told to from 5 years old, but it's the controllables that you can control. For some athletes, it's either going to like a rigs recovery style place where you do hot and cold plunge, or just pure cold plunge. It kind of depends. It's building the discipline to do the things that not everyone does on a day-to-day basis. So if you can build yourself into that disciplined mindset, and again, when it comes to your gaming, you're going to be in a lot better space to be able to execute the way you would like to if you've built that discipline, because the discipline you're doing outside of gaming transfers to your gaming, and then it has that more positive effect later on as well.
So Chris, you spoke about gamers being those cognitive athletes. Now, what advice can you give to aspiring pro gamers to make sure their mental health is always at their best possible capacity, and their well-being is focused on when they do sort of depart on this journey to be a pro gamer?
Yeah, I think one of the sayings that I think is really important, there's actually two. One is "this too shall pass," the other one is "it's okay." "This too shall pass" essentially means when we experience an emotion, or we might be in an emotive state, being aware that it's okay, we can't control our emotions, they come and go like a wave, but remembering whether you're happy, sad, or anything in between, it will pass and everything will be okay. Just engage in your support systems, make sure you're talking to people, and if you're feeling flat, don't be afraid to reach out. I think that the living concept that it ain't weak to speak is a really powerful one, where, especially for young men, it's been an area where, especially in Australia, we've not been great at reaching out to talk to others. So just reach out, and you don't have to go into your deepest, darkest secrets a lot of the time. It's just reaching out and having a good connection with someone and saying, "Hey, I'm feeling a bit flat. Do you want to catch up and we'll go for a walk, or sit down and chat, listen to music?" Again, you don't have to spill everything out, but sometimes just having a connection with someone is really important and does the job.
Yeah.
So looking after your mental health, if you are mentally healthy, then you're going to compete in a healthy way and a more positive way as well. So I think it's those little things. If you're looking after your mental health and doing all the little things correctly, then that's going to help you. And I always say there's 3 things you can control for your mental health: sleep, exercise, nutrition. And again, exercise doesn't have to be, I'm going to go to the gym every day or run every day. 30-minute walk, just get the heart rate up. It's great to do it outside a lot of the time as well. Vitamin D, again, really good for your mental health. So that's going to help promote a positive, healthy lifestyle, which then will have a positive correlation with gaming as well.
Yeah, super important.
Fantastic. Chris, thank you so much for sharing your insights and advice with us today. It's been highly valuable for our community.
Oh, thanks for having me on. My pleasure.